Okay, in the old days, the Geological Society Dining Club used to meet at the Athenaeum after the formal meetings of the Society when papers were read at Burlington House. And I attended the dining club as a guest 3 times in the late 1960s when I presented papers on the geology of Libya and Jordan and gave a paper on statistical gymnastics applied to cyclic sedimentation. I then went off into the oil industry for 5 years before returning to Imperial College in 1975. And not long after, Professor Dan Geol proposed me for membership to the dining club, and I was duly elected, and subsequently have enjoyed many convivial evenings with members of the club. Here follow 4 recollections of notable evenings. The Society. First, the night when Professor Shearman's trousers fell down in the kitchens of the Athenaeum. Towards the end of his life, Doug became very frail and mobility was a problem. But John Cosgrove, bless him, contrived to get Doug to the dining club for one dinner. With difficulty, we managed to get him down the stairs into the garden room where we were dining that evening. Doug had a thoroughly enjoyable evening and went on chattering away with us until Doug, John Cosgrove, Chris Halls and I were the last people left. We realised it was time for us to leave too, but we were worried perhaps Doug by now would be too frail, tired and emotional to actually ascend the flight of stairs up onto the ground floor of the Athenaeum. So we conceived the plan of getting him out through the kitchens where there was a service lift at the end. So we got him up, we got to the kitchen doors, looked through the glass porthole. The kitchens were in total darkness. So Chris Halls and John Cosgrove went back and each picked up a candelabra. In those days when people could smoke, there were always silver candelabras, each with 3 candles on the tables. And I shepherded Doug through the door of the kitchens with John Cosgrove in front of me, holding his candelabra aloft, Chris Halls behind likewise. Now Doug, in his old age, had lost a lot of weight, and his trousers fell down in the middle of the kitchens. So there was I, bent double, trying to get Doug's trousers up, whilst John and Chris held these silver candelabras over us so we could actually see what we were doing. Inevitable by this stage in the evening, we were quite convivial, and we all suddenly got a fit of the giggles. Anyway, in the end, we managed to get Doug's trousers up and secure them, and we continued our way along the kitchens through the gloom to the light at the end, to the service lift. Awaiting us there was Harold, one of the old club servants. He relieved us of the candelabras, and as we got into the lift, he said, "My, you geologists know how to enjoy yourselves, don't you?" The Society. The second memory that springs to mind is the night of excessive balls. There were close meetings twice a year at which new members were proposed for membership and voted on using an incredible old contraption consisting of 2 drawers and a wooden tube. And somebody would circulate this around the diners and we would each take up a cork ball and put it through the tube, left for yes and right for no. One evening someone was proposed for membership who was not universally admired, and somebody, and I won't name them, conceived the plan that we might actually take more than 1 cork ball to show how we voted. A number of us obviously did this because when the contraption was handed back to the president, who was chairing the meeting, and he did the count, he said, "Ladies and gentlemen, I have to declare that there are more votes cast no than there are actually diners present in the evening tonight." This is quite disgraceful. Then there is the night of the gout stool. I was standing around having drinks before we sat down for dinner with Jenny Huggett and one or two others. Jenny was convalescing from having some foot surgery, and she remarked to us how very painful it was for her to stand around having a drink. And I casually said, well, Jenny, what you need is a gout stool. One of the Athenaeum staff just happened to be walking past and stopped and interrupted and say, excuse me, would madam like a gout stool? Jenny said, well, yes. We thought nothing of it, carried on chatting and drinking. 5 minutes later, in come two of the Athenaeum staff carrying a gout stool, which they found where Jenny was going to sit, and they put it there for her to have her leg up over the evening. Now, you don't get service like that at Wetherspoons. Lastly, there is the Ian Plimer debacle. Ian Plimer, a name that may well be familiar to you, was a very well-known professor of mining geology in Australia. And there were some creation scientists who started putting their propaganda out in Australia, and he took them to court for spreading such nonsense. And unfortunately, the judge refused his application on the grounds that religion was not a trade. You can't prosecute them as he intended under the Trades Description Act. Ian Plimer went bankrupt. He had to sell his house, his marriage broke down, his life was very miserable. Now, generally, geologists, we ignore that kind of creation science rubbish and don't do anything about it. At the time, I was Foreign Secretary of the Society, and I thought it would be rather nice to have him elected an honorary member, which I duly proposed to Council, and Council agreed. Shortly after Ian Plimer came to London on business, I invited him to come to the dining club as my guest, and craving the indulgence of the chairman, as you know, we never have speeches after the dinner, could I say a few words to introduce Professor Plimer and explain that he's now an honorary fellow and the reason for it. So I gave a very short talk, proposed a toast to Professor Plimer, and there was general applause, and he sat down. During that visit, we arranged for him to give a talk in the Houses of Parliament to the all-party Parliamentary Committee on Geology. Well, it all went rather pear-shaped. Some of you may recall, may well know, Ian Plimer is now a noted climate change denialist. So that really was a shame that I proposed him for honorary fellowship with the best of intentions, but it all went rather sour in the end, didn't it? Ah, well, the Society.